Welcome to Jim Bob's Garden.
Alright, so welcome back to Jim Bob's Garden. Today, hang on, let's start that over. Tomato today. Alright, anyway. So, welcome back to Jim Bob's Garden. Today we're going to plant tomatoes. It is the first day of spring. It's a beautiful day out. So we're going to get some tomatoes. First off, there's two different ways you can do tomatoes. You can either grow them from seed, which I have done here, all right, which I've labeled. These are some sweet cherry tomatoes, all right, but they're not quite ready to go in the garden yet. So I'm going to let them get up to where they're hopefully almost the size of these. Now these are various different hybrids that I bought from the store. Let me show you something. If you look, I've been very careful to pick out plants that have got two. Most of them, they try and put just one seed in each, but this one's got two. In fact, I really made a little extra bank because this one has three. All right, all for the price of one. So if you're going to buy tomato plants, I mean, you don't have to do it that way, but hey, you know what? It saves you some money. And then what I'm going to do, I made gardens for my other two kids, and so I'm going to go ahead, well, I'm going to make a third garden for my third child, but I'm going to go ahead and take these tomato plants that I have extra, and I'm going to plant them in their gardens. So, with that being said, first thing about tomato plants is you don't want to plant your tomatoes when there's a danger of frost. If you think it's still going to freeze, you really should be waiting on the tomato plants themselves to be planting them after all danger of frost is past. Now it's March 20th, first day of spring. It's been a really warm winter, so I don't think it's going to freeze again. If it does, I'll have to protect them, but hopefully that won't happen. I do believe we should be good to go. Though Easter up here in northeast Florida is usually a really good date, and you know after Easter, normally speaking, it won't freeze. But we're going to take a chance and go with it. I've got a total investment of about $750 or so. Well, if you had the seeds, probably $10. So if I lose my investment, well, I lost my investment. So with that being said, so what we're going to do, let's start. Oh, let me talk about this. I have my tomato cages already here and laid out. The reason I did that is so I kind of got an idea of where I want to plant them. Now, tomato cages of this type aren't real solid. So you need to make sure you get them down in the ground a bit, because when you get a good wind, it's going to want to try and push them over, especially once the tomatoes get big. Now, you can do this however you want. There's a lot of different ways that you can stake up your tomatoes. You can build a cage with wood sticks. You can use string. There's a lot of different methods. You can use wire, however you want to go about it. But tomatoes will need to be staked up. They won't really stand on their own in most cases. All right? They'll make a vine, and the vines will lay down on the ground. We did this last year, and any tomato that touches the ground usually will rot or get eaten up by bugs. All right, with that being said, so we take our, let's see, I want to do the sun here. Hang on 1 second, got airplanes going by. Stinking airplanes. All right, so when you take your tomato plant, squeeze around the outside, kind of push on the bottom and let it fall out into your hand. You don't want to pull it out by the roots, or I mean by the tomato plant itself. And then when it comes to splitting them, it can be kind of a delicate operation. Basically, you're going to take your tomato plant, kind of split it in half, trying to save as many of the roots as you can, and then take the two tomato plants, kind of pull them apart. So that you get roots on both sides as much as possible. Just gently try to wiggle them apart, saving as much of the root as you can. All right, now with that being said, so now I got one of my plants. You just dig yourself a hole. Well, hang on. First, what I want to do is I want to take all of these bottom branches right here, and I'm going to snip them off with my fingernails or with a pair of scissors. And you're just going to cut them off like so. Now the reason being, if you look real closely, hopefully you can see, Along the bottom of the stem there's a whole bunch of little hairs coming out. Each one of those hairs will become a root. So we're going to plant this kind of deep to make a little more solid plant. And I'm going to try and save my volunteer lettuce down in here. You can see that. Now, preparing the dirt, you want some good dirt for tomatoes. They're a very hungry plant. They really like to have lots of nutrients. And you want to make sure that you've got enough of a hole to where you can bury it basically all the way up to the bottom of that first branch that you're keeping. All right, so we're going to get that down in there pretty deep. And we're going to take some of that dirt, pack it back around. And just kind of push the dirt in a little bit around it, hold it solid. Now I leave a little divot in mine because I got such moist soil here, so when I water, it kind of leaves a little well for the water to soak into. Make sure I get the water on the tomato where I want it. Press down the dirt a little bit, boom, there you go, you're done. Now the only other thing I would recommend, like on this one, that's that sun sugar tomato. Yeah, yellow cherry sun sugar. So I've already made up some stakes for all of these. And basically I bought these online, and I've got a little label gun that I make the labels for. I like them because they're a little bigger for us old and blind people. And you just stick that down in there so you know what kind of tomato you got. And then I'm going to take this, I'm going to put it back in that pot for now, along with the stake. So I can give that to my kids. We'll put some more dirt around that here in a minute. Like I said, now these are still too small to be planted. So I'm going to hold off on those. Those are ones I've planted from seed. So we'll just set them aside for the moment. Next one is going to be the early girl. Once again, just squeeze the bottom. Squeeze all around the sides rather. And then push on the bottom a little bit. It should just pop out into your hand. And separate them. Can be kind of difficult to get them separated when they're grown closely like this. But like I said, you know, 2 for 1. It's like getting BOGO groceries, right? Gotta love it. Hopefully that'll still grow. Get my little shovel. Now, you don't absolutely have to put the stakes up right away. You can do that later if you want, over your cage. I just like to do that so that I know where I'm going to plant them. So I've got a good plan going. And like I said, now, having good soil is critical. Hopefully this soil is good. I put a ton of compost, put some cow manure, composted cow manure, and it's been covered in mulch pretty much all season long. So hopefully that will be sufficient. Oops, get back in there. I'll take care of you in a second. Now that's another thing. If you do this on a hot day, you're going to want to cover them like right away. You don't want the roots drying out. Do I have one growing there? Yeah, it's still trying, isn't it? So this one, and this one is the big boy. Let's see, that was the early girl, right? Yeah, early girl. And then, now for me, I like putting the cherry tomato. That sun sugar tomato is actually a cherry tomato. I like putting it at the end, so as you're walking around the garden doing your harvesting and such, you can pick cherries as you go, or cherry tomatoes, I should say, as you go along, so that you can snack. Because man, I love them cherry tomatoes. Now this is a big boy tomato, another hybrid. I've got several varieties that I'm trying out. to see which one seems to be the best. I'm going with Better Boy, an Abe Lincoln Heritage tomato, a Sweetie, and then of course I've got the Early Girl, Sun Sugar, and this one here is the Big Boy. Different tomatoes are good for different things. I am still learning which ones are the best for me and my family, but you know, kind of play with it and figure out what you want to do as far as which tomato you want to grow, what grows best in your garden, in your area. Come on now, come apart. I'm trying really hard to save some of these roots. But like I said, the one thing about tomatoes is they do tend to root very well. In fact, a lot of people will take just a cut tomato vine and stick it, or a branch rather, and stick it in the ground and get it to grow up that way. As long as you keep it moist, it will usually root off and grow well. Let me see, I'll trim the bottom one there. And of course, once you're done planting them, it is critical to go around and water them. I'll save you the time of having to watch me water by doing it after we're done with the video, but obviously, anytime you plant anything, you want to get it watered in right away. Planting is stressful on any kind of transplanting is stressful on any kind of plant. All right, so we got that going on. Let's put the Big Boy there. There you go. Let me see. And we're going to put one down here. Let's get this one back in the pot. And the last one's going to go down here. Now I have done some different things. Like this bed here, I didn't dig up or anything. I just basically put compost on the top, kind of stirred it in, some composted cow manure, and then some mulch. This bed, I actually went at it with a rototiller, dug it all up, and added the compost and the cow manure into it. So we'll kind of see which seems to do the best as far as actually growing things. Now, some other things you can do to help out your tomatoes. Tomatoes can get infested by bugs. There are a lot of different plants you can grow around tomatoes, like marigolds, which is what I've got planted here. And I'm probably going to put some zinnias in over there. And that helps to keep the bugs off, confuse the bugs. As far as, you know, a lot of the pests that you end up getting in your garden, it will help some. I don't put any kind of insecticide on my tomatoes because I want to be able to just eat them without having to wash them. And there's a couple other plants that are good for tomato plants. You can put carrots, onions. I've actually got some onions planted there, but none of them have come up yet. And then, like, I've got parsley that's growing, just barely starting to poke out right here. And then garlic is another one apparently you can plant around your tomatoes to help keep some of the bugs away by confusing the smell. Some bugs go after the color, others go after the smell. So then the other thing is just get out here and clean them up by hand. So with that being said, that's how I go about planting my tomatoes. Hopefully kind of shows you what to do. Really not a lot to it. You can either buy them from seed or you can buy them at the store. The nice thing about buying them at the store, there's a lot of hybrids available. You can get some seeds that are hybrids, but you kind of want to look at what grows best in your area. Like the better boys are supposed to be very disease resistant, as are I believe the big boys and the early girls. All of them are supposed to be selected for this area. But that's part of what you want to do when you plant the different tomato plants, to kind of decide what seems to work the best in your particular garden. All right, well, that's really all there is to it. And then from there, we just pull a few weeds here and there and just wait and hope for a really good harvest. Thanks once again for stopping by. Like, subscribe, give me some comments, let me know what you think, and grow something in your yard. Thanks again.